Thanks very much, and good to be here today. My presentation very much running off the back of Gavin's earlier. And the second nickel asset that we have in the First Quantum portfolio is the Enterprise project, which, along with Sentinel, forms an integral part of our Trident complex, which is located in the northwest province of Zambia. The project was actually constructed in parallel to the Sentinel project, but then placed on care and maintenance in 2015 after pre-commissioning to be complete, mostly due to the prevailing market conditions at the time. This integrated nature of Enterprise actually gives it a significant benefit in the sense that there's some pretty strong synergies with Sentinel as far as shared administration services go, support services, logistics, warehousing, accommodation on site, but also we've got established engineering and operational teams on site that can be incrementally expanded quite readily to take on Enterprise. And obviously existing infrastructure, we can leverage power, water, access, road access, things like that. That fundamentally transforms Enterprise from a new greenfield in an emerging geography to quite a small brownfield, low-risk expansion in nature, really. The resource base measured and indicated about 37.7 million tonnes, just over 1% nickel, with an additional 9.3 million tonnes at 0.7% inferred. From a country risk perspective, First Quantum's been operating in Zambia for quite a long time now, over 25 years, and we'd really consider that to be our home turf, although I'm sure the Cobra guys might argue now. We're highly integrated into the economy there. 96% of our employees and our local Zambian residents. High spend with the local, mid-80s sort of total spend with Zambian companies, and based on the latest 2020 data, we were the largest single taxpayer in Zambia as well. But also from an ESG perspective, we maintain our biodiversity offsets, sort of nature reserves at 100 times our active mining footprint. We've reintroduced the wildlife animals to both of our sites outside of the working areas, and you do see them as you're driving around site, bit of a mini safari. We have, where am I up to? We've recently established a conservation farming teaching facility on site. We've had 8,000 people go through so far at Kansanshi. That has, we've seen increases of yields of up to 200% for some of our local subsistence farmers. And in the last 4 years, we've provided new refurbished facilities to our local communities, including over 20 water boreholes, 40 classrooms and 20 healthcare facilities. So very much part of Zambia, very comfortable operating in that environment. Listen, just touching on the project itself, as mentioned, Enterprise and Sentinel are integrated together at Trident there, so the combined plant facilities are co-located to just the bottom of the picture there, to the south of the existing Sentinel pit. Towards the top right, you'll see the combined tailings facility for the complex. And then to the top right, about 12 kilometres to the northwest, you'll see the Enterprise pit just below the Chisola Dam. Access to that pit is via the already established haul road that you can see there. That was put in place for the construction of the Chisola Dam. We just need to do a short 2 kilometre spur, construction of which is almost complete now, to access that mining area. We received project approval in May of this year with a capex of $100 million. That was approved in conjunction with the Kansanshi S3 project of $1.25 billion, also the Kansanshi smelter expansion of another $115 million, so a total spend of just under $1.5 billion for the 3 projects in Zambia. And that very much came around from not only improved market conditions for nickel, at least for Enterprise, but also from the increased confidence and stability from the new dawn policies of the current Zambian government. Geologically, it's a sediment-hosted hydrothermal nickel deposit, about 95% sulphides. We do have some initial oxides down to about 60 metres to start with, and some minor amounts of nickel silicates, which we won't recover. The most interesting thing of the deposit, maybe besides the nickel, is that it has some quite distinct high and low-grade talc domains, and we have had to design the plan around that to handle that. Mining conventional load and haul to a ROM pad near surface before transfer to road trucks. More efficient to transport to the plant. About 11-year life of mine with a bit over an 8 strip ratio. We'll look at ramping up to 3 million tonnes next year before pushing up to 4 million tonne nameplate after that. Processing, again, quite conventional. 2 jaw crushers, SAG ball mill, then into a talc pre-float circuit as we discussed, a single rougher and 2 cleaner stages, into a fairly conventional nickel float circuit, single rougher, three-stage cleaning. Water, air, reagents, tailings, they're all integral to Sentinel, so already in place and operating and can be used immediately. This will give Enterprise about 280,000 tonnes of nickel over its 11-year life of mine. We'll look at ramping that up to about 30,000 tonnes in 2025. It'll stabilise about there, and we will peak on 40 for a brief year. Again, in the context of the Trident Complex, where you've got Sentinel doing 62 million tonnes per annum, quite a small marginal increase in operating requirements, but obviously quite a high margin business for us in that context. Just a few happy snaps of where we're at. Stockpile to the top left, again, high level of civil and mechanical completion. With the exception of putting a conveyor belt in, it's pretty well ready to go. Milling and flotation circuits, again, high level mechanical completion, reasonably good condition, to be honest, for a plant that's been on care and maintenance for 7 years. And the mining fleet's now been mobilised. You can see progress there for the pre-strip. It's progressing on schedule for our first production next year. Concentrate marketing, again, will be undertaken by MTC, our internal marketing company, who have previously done the Cavista nickel sulphide and obviously do Ravo as well, so quite familiar with the market. We are expecting a fairly high concentrate, being predominantly millerite and vassarite. And we're benchmarking that probably at the higher end of nickel sulphide exporters. The export path is probably going to be a bit of a long haul down to Walvis Bay and then onto ocean freight to North American, European smelters, but also quite possibly to China. Again, being a nickel sulphide deposit, as we touched on just a few minutes ago, quite low emissions profile, probably a sixth of a laterite MPI and probably around that half of that of a laterite HPAL product. Also looking at some further mods to increase our con grade even further by 1 or 2%, some mods to the cleaning circuit, further reduce our emissions footprint, particularly on product logistics, but also makes a bit of financial sense as well. Just looking at Enterprise in the context of our overall First Quantum global greenhouse gas reduction strategy, we're pushing hard to move away from higher emissions diesel energy to lower emissions electrical, as most mining companies these days. We're doing that primarily through technology innovation. Two innovations that we've adapted quite strongly is trolley assist, currently in place at Kansanshi and Sentinel, and also in-pit conveying and crushing, which is in place at Sentinel and will be installed in Kansanshi as part of the S3 project. If we then look at our electrical supply in Zambia, it's already highly renewable, 80% hydro from ZESCO, and as we announced earlier this year, we'll be looking at partnering with Total and Chariot to go 100% renewable in the short term through a couple of wind farm and solar projects located in Zambia as well. So where does that put First Quantum? Not particularly considered a nickel producer. By about 2025, we are expecting to push up into that lower part of the top 10 of global producers, with both Ravo ramping up and Enterprise coming online. In both cases, obviously Enterprise, as we just touched on, sulphide products are relatively low emissions to start with, but also with the high renewable content, that should be fairly favourable for an EV market. And as Gavin touched on earlier, Ravo, an MHP product as well, with the power generation as a byproduct of the acid production. That's about all I had, guys. Thanks very much. I'll leave you with an infographic of our current ESG performance.